Aloha nerds and welcome back to the Salawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. Alright. I got three good movies for you today to talk about, and I'm building up to the best one. So first off, I'm going to talk with my freshest memory, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, directed by Christopher Landon, starring Sheridan, who is Cyclops in X-Men Apocalypse, and Dark Phoenix, Dirty Phoenix, and Sarah Dumont, Logan Miller, Joey Morgan. I don't normally be this prepared. It's gut reaction. I leave myself the room to not be prepared, but I thought the cast was really good, and I think I know Sheridan from another project. I really liked the whole cast in this one. I mean, it's really a small, tight cast. There's a comic actor whose name I did not look up. I should have gotten it, but he's also in this movie, and he does a great job. But he's only in it for just a brief couple scenes. But you know, he's just one of those actors who always delivers. But I was really happy with our young scouts. These are high school Boy Scouts, and it's I forget if it's not their senior year, but it's their junior year in high school. And it's about three friends. They are the only scouts in the Boy Scouts in this little town, and two of them want to leave the Boy Scouts, but one of them has sort of a personal tie to it that they both and the other two understand, but they still kind of want to go their own way. But they're still nonetheless best friends, and the zombie apocalypse occurs. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. It just occurs. Oh, no, wait. Oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah. You saw my Workaholics review. Chewbacca, Blake Henderson, is in this movie. I don't want to spoil what he does, but let's just say it's a very Workaholics styled beginning to this movie. Yeah, it's good. Wow. I just did not see this coming. Just the fact that it starts off with Blake Henderson being essentially Blake from Workaholics, but just on his own is like, oh no, this can only lead to catastrophe. And it does. But it's just such a great opening because it's got so much energy. There's so much music, and music is sort of a thread throughout this movie. Where with the clip that got me to watch this, you gotta love the people who pick the clips for these streaming services because they're really good. There's a clip where Joey Morgan is up close with a zombie. And he notices that the zombie has a Britney Spears shirt. So all of a sudden he starts going, "Oh, baby, baby." And his friends are like, "What? What are you doing? Get away from the zombie." And he starts going, "Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know?" And the zombie starts going, "Rah, rah, 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 rah." It's hilarious, and it's actually something that happens periodically throughout the movie. I actually think it's a really fun movie. I think if you want tension and to truly be terrified while still laughing your ass off, I do think Cooties is the better kids with zombies movie. But I think this movie is just a lot of fun. And I'll just say one criticism of it that's not really a spoiler. It's kind of a spoiler, but related to the music. I think they're kind of touch and go with how the zombies are affected by the music. Sometimes you have sequences where the music affects the zombies, and sometimes for the sake of having a zombie action scene, the music has nothing to do with affecting the zombies. And I would only say, although the ending works for me, I'm not unhappy with the ending. I did feel like the way they set up the music, I thought the music would be like, I thought for sure they're going to either end with Britney Spears or Dolly Parton, because Dolly Parton one of the comic actor I mentioned, whose name I forgot. He's a Dolly Parton fan. His character's a Dolly Parton fan. So I thought, for sure, you're going to bring up one of these songs again, or maybe another song from one of these artists, and it's going to be a huge part in the big climax, and especially because the climax is in a party scene. But you know, it's okay. Even though it does not do that payoff, I wish it had. I think it would have been I think it really would have elevated itself hugely if it had some kind of epic sequence where the music was used and the zombies either did Thriller or they did some kind of dance sequence that would just be unexpected. It's more of a traditional zombie apocalyptic ending. It's a comedy, so you have that, but it's, you know, in terms of just, you know, you get all the gratuitous violence and the final battle sequence and the, you know what I mean? This is a pretty typical zombie flick overall. It's not bad, not in any kind of bad way. It's just it gives you all the goods that you need from a zombie flick, and it's very fun and it's very funny from beginning to end. Our heroes have their individual arcs and payoffs, and it's all nice. But yeah, that's my only criticism that I can just give out without spoiling the movie, is just that the way they had set up the music, I thought it would be so much more important at the end, and I do sincerely believe if they had picked any song and made some giant zombie dance sequence out of the finale of this movie, I think that for sure would have. And there's one thing that one of the character does. He builds a bomb for a particular sequence in this movie, and that just comes out of nowhere. But other than those two things, I think this movie does deliver on the goods. It is a totally entertaining movie, and if you're just looking for a good time, conventional zombie flick, this one delivers. Definitely, zombie movies have the thing of always getting me, no matter how good or bad they are. Or after the movie's going, after the movie's over, especially if it's at nighttime and it's quiet outside, I start thinking, oh, there's zombies outside. Oh no, the zombies are out there and they're going to get me. I can't leave the house. You know, it just happens no matter what. If I put on a zombie movie, that paranoia exists. That's Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Really good time. Even though technically I semi-spoiled the ending, I didn't really spoil the events that happened. So you can just, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Really good time. It's gonna make you happy. And Sarah Dumont, beautiful, awesome. There's totally some Evil Dead references, and she's kind of got this like chick Ash from the Evil Dead. She's like the chick version of Ash from the Evil Dead with her toughness, which I really like, particularly Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. She's just tougher than the high school boys she's running around with trying to help them survive. And so just a little shout out to Sarah Dumont for that. She really played that well. So that's Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Check that out. Next up, okay. I've not seen a lot of Bill Burr's stand-up. I've listened to some of his podcasts. He's really entertaining. In all of his... what I like with comedians, I like comedians who really have a point of view. It's great if you can just make jokes and play with the audience and all that stuff. But I'm a big fan of, or if I'm watching a clip, what keeps me invested are comedians who have a point of view. And Bill Burr is among a couple comedians who kind of like have this really semi-old school but also kind of practical look at life. Just they look at life and like, what are you complaining about? Wow, this thing you think is bad is actually a good thing. Or what are you complaining about? We're in the modern age. We're not in the medieval times. Like, there's a sort of a perspective and an attitude going on that I really like. Is why I think Dave Chappelle's great, because Dave Chappelle, not only does he have a perspective, but I think, like George Carlin and Richard Pryor, he's a fantastic storyteller. But when it comes to Bill Burr, I haven't seen much of his stand-up. I probably saw more of it when it was just becoming famous, but I had seen what made me watch Old Dads. I'd seen Old Dads pop up on Netflix, and I'm always a little bit, because I follow directors, not actors. I'm always like, I don't know. This is a comedian becoming a director. What's that going to be like? I don't know. I was a little, what's this going to be? And I didn't think that. I think I'd seen the trailer and it didn't quite get me. But there was a really great clip, again, a clip, where he's picking up his son from school. He's literally 2 minutes late. And so the principal tries to bug him for $2 for being 2 minutes late, which is so ridiculous. You wouldn't get that at a public school. And also, it's a school. The parent has to pick up the kid anyway. And it's only 2 minutes. I mean, it's such a ridiculous situation, but it sounds real. It totally sounds like one of these stuffy, weird places. Like, I don't know how much of this is based on real life. I would certainly love to know. But it was a great clip. But what really got me to see it was I'd seen or heard, I'd listened to a little podcast clip where Bill Burr was talking about Horizon, an American saga. And I already mentioned in that review, there's something about the way that Bill Burr talked about it where I just felt like, okay, me and this guy have something in common. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? The way he's talking about this movie sounds like what excites me about really good films. Especially when he pointed out it was 3 hours. I didn't know it was 3 hours. But he said it went by like that. I'm like, okay. Everything in the way he talked about that movie, and he gave nothing away about the movie. I practically spoiled the whole movie with my review. But he gave nothing away about the movie while still selling it. And also, but just the way, again, he kind of has this old school vibe. I'm down with the old school. Old school's cool. But just the way he talked about it gave me a sense of his passion for what storytelling should look like. And then I saw Horizon and I fucking loved it. I thought, damn, okay, this is everything Bill Burr said it was going to be. I will check out your movie. It's always actors who direct movies. It's always on the sort of the back burner for me. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. I just haven't seen that many. Even though, Mel Gibson's Braveheart was fantastic. It's just I haven't seen that many movies directed by actors, and so I don't really know. Except for Peter Berg, I've seen his movies. He was an actor. And so I'm just like, how's it going to be? And you're a comedian too. So how am I going to, I don't know what to think. I'm kind of nervous to check out your movie because, I look at it from the director's side. I'm not used to thinking, well, what's the actor thinking when they make a movie? Sometimes it does not come out so good. But that's just the same with anybody. But anyway, Horizon was so good. And I realized, okay, Bill Burr, I think we're on a wavelength of what we expect from movies. So I'm gonna, since I had such a great time, and if that's how you understand and see movies, then okay, I'm curious to see how you direct. So then I checked out Old Dads, and actually he did a pretty good job. I feel like the directing literally gets better scene by scene. I don't know if they shot it in order or what. Because I think in the beginning, I talk a lot about film language in my movies, and no normal person's gonna know what the hell I'm talking about or give a shit. And Bill Burr probably himself was like, what the fuck are you talking about? It looks good, right? Shut up. But I think there are certain scenes in the early part of the movie where I'm like, why is Bill Burr in the background like he's the supporting character? He's the main character. And then slowly throughout the movie, you see Bill Burr start to stand in front of the supporting actors. I was like, yeah, that's how you're supposed to do. You're the main character. We have to see this from your point of view. It's like literally as the movie goes on, like the film language adds up. But I mean, the story is telling is still there, and when he's in individual scenes talking to people, he's got down what he needs to do. So I'm like, okay, he's doing everything right. I think I'd seen another movie, I'll just say Stephen King recommended it with shining colors. I saw another movie that Stephen King recommended, and with a lot of actors I like in it. And I just thought the film language and the filmmaking was literally all over the place. I have been on shoots that were like that, where the director was not in control and there was no sense of where the camera should be, and you see it when it's over, and it's a muddled mess. And that's just how I felt watching this particular movie, where I'm like, well, okay. Maybe I don't read a lot, but I can read film language. You know what I mean? Film language is precious to me. I can understand how the image is supposed to be. And I was watching that, I'm like, Jesus, like, this movie is boring. A lot of stuff that should have been left on the cutting room floor. A lot of scenes that don't add or build character or tell story or anything. And then and then finally got to a scene with a whole bunch of people, and the camera work, for me, again, as a guy reading the film language, I'm like, why is the camera so far away from the people who are talking? It's not adding tension. I should be seeing a close-up or a medium shot. I don't know what this director is doing. It seemed like he was desperately trying to pick a perspective, but he couldn't pick one. It's like, film language, okay, that's something that, again, you regular people are not going to give a shit about. But I could just see that Bill Burr, at the very least, understood when you have a scene with two people talking to each other, the camera should be on them talking. You know what I mean? I was like, thank you. Okay, I can follow what's going on here. And also, the scenes should all be about moving that story forward. There's no dead air. If there's a character scene, it is adding to what's going on with the rest of the story. Bill Burr co-wrote this movie with this co-writer, Ben Tischler. I didn't look up his credits. But what I liked about this movie, and like I said, I was happy to see watching the movie, he's checking all the boxes for things as a filmmaker I'm looking for. Okay, you're doing a good job. I'm following the movie, the story's moving. But I was just happy to see that this movie is a very different movie from, say, Scout's Guide. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, like I said, very traditional zombie movie. Old Dads is literally a comedy sketch written out as a film, which I thought was great. It talked about perspective. It's literally Bill Burr's perspective of being a dad in phony ass LA with fake ass, sideways people. Just, he's going to a school mostly filled with white people, where white people are saying, should white people be in charge? You're already in charge. What the fuck are you talking about? You're already in charge. What the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? And where the one black guy brings up, your comment, Bill Burr, you were judging the size of my body. And it's like, oh my God. I'm like, he's like, I wasn't talking anything about you. I wasn't even looking in your I wasn't even vaguely looking in your direction. And, you just got people being offended over things that have nothing to do with them, which is such a comment on today's society. But also he does have the wherewithal to say, hey, well, this can't just be me bitching about society. I know that I've got my own flaws, and so he sort of makes his flaw as a person or a comedian, he turns that into his character arc. It's like, hey, look, just because I am this way and it makes me successful doesn't mean that I should necessarily just be spouting whatever I say and being brutally honest with everybody. Sometimes you just got to be chill the fuck out and let things slide, And it's a nice little character arc. So he's on every level. Bill Burr is really delivering a good movie. And I gotta say, the side characters, and it's not that I don't like these actors, but the supporting actors I've seen in a million things, and I've always seen them separately. You know what I mean? Bobby Cannavale, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I apologize if I am. I've seen him in a lot of dramedies, comedies. He was in the Ant-Man movies as the stepdad who's with Ant-Man's ex-wife. Seen him a lot of stuff, and not a comment on his performance. I just the characters or something about it never quite rang with me, because also, literally most of the time, those characters you're not even supposed to root for. You're supposed to root for Ant-Man getting his wife back or getting his daughter's affection, and he's literally there to be the guy you root against. You know what I mean? Like, the movie is just so fixed against, you know what I mean? That's that style of comedy it's going for. It's like, oh, you're not supposed to like this guy because you're supposed to like Paul Rudd. And so I have no choice but to kind of not have that high of opinion of him, because he's playing the characters that you're not supposed to have a high opinion of. And the same thing with, and this is one of Bill Burr's best buddies in the movie. And then there's, again, I hope I'm saying your name right, Bokeem Woodbine. Really great actor. I've seen him in tons of stuff, and he's on the opposite side. I've seen him in tons of science fiction, action, all kinds of stuff. I've seen them both in, I don't know, like a dozen movies. It feels like I've seen him in 100 movies. And again, he always typically plays the bad guy or the supporting henchman, or maybe a henchman with a little bit of a nuanced humanity to him. You know what I mean? And I'll say that's the same for Bobby. For Bobby, the other guy, he always plays the guy that you're not supposed to root for, but you kind of like him. He's kind of likable. You know what I mean? They both have played the exact middle of the road guy you're not supposed to root for, or guy you're supposed to root against, or wait for them to get killed by the hero in every single movie that I've seen them in. You know, not to say that they haven't been in better roles. I just haven't seen those projects. But it was so funny to see that these are Bill Burr's best buddies. I think this was the highlight of the movie for me. Not only is this movie a 90-minute stand-up special told as a story, and I say done very well, but the two best buddies are actors who I'm so used to not having to care about, because they are playing the guy you're not supposed to care about. Like, that's the character, you know. And here they are playing the best buddies, and they take turns, especially in the first half of the. I think the first half of the movie is Bokeem's. He's just like got all the best lines that made me laugh my ass off, and then the second half of the movie is Bobby's, or I'm just like, what the hell? You just took the wheel and decided, no, I'm the crazier friend. I'm, you know what I mean? But I also thought some really good performances got out of them too. I think, you know, even though I don't know why I have a nervousness about watching actors direct. I don't know. It's just it has nothing to do with anything. It's just me being a weirdo. But you know what I mean? I think one thing I would say, like looking at Horizon and looking at Old Dads, the best thing about when actors do direct is that you get a full range of the performance that actors are capable of. A lot of times directors are just getting this kind of copy and paste archetypal, like I said, the guy you're supposed to root against. Like, it's just you just get such a one-note performance out of actors who can do so much more. And that's what was beautiful about watching Horizon, is that although it's an action movie and a Western movie and a drama all in one, and a little bit of a romance, although it's touching all these genres, never at any point do you feel like you're just being played, like, oh, here's the scene I'm so used to, you know what I mean, where the person does this. Every single time it genuinely feels like, oh, this is the actor, or this is the character absorbing the moment, existing in the moment, dealing with what's going on, and playing all of the range of what that experience is. And I felt the same way with Old Dads, where it's like, even though our side buddies get all the funniest lines, they also have their own character arcs, and by the end of the movie get some really nice performance moments. I was like, wow, if you were starting your career, these would be great scenes for your demo reel. But here you are, like so many movies in, and this is the first time I've gotten to watch a movie, watch you guys perform, and go, oh shit, I 100% see you doing way more than even this. Like, I'm finally seeing you do a really solid performance. And, you know, like Spider-Man Homecoming, I distinctly remember Bokeem in that one as the second shocker. And this is important. This is coming up in the main review I'm getting to. But you know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, he plays cool. He plays kind of human. He's really trying not to be an evil henchman. And really, none of them are trying to play evil necessarily in Spider-Man Homecoming. But, you know, it's just inevitably, it's like you have really strong actors forced to play inside of a tiny little box, and it's the only room that the script will give them. It's this tiny little box, and they have to play in that tiny little box because it's a Hollywood movie, it's a blockbuster movie, and it's got to be simple. But you can see, like Horizon, you can do an epic Hollywood movie, and in those cases, in this case, with your own money, and you can have characters have a full range of emotion and be more than just good or bad. You know what I mean? And there's some people who are definitely bad, but even then, like, you can have them have a presence and have a sense of their range as actors and really feel the emotion of what's going on. And so Old Dads, I was just really impressed. Like, good job, Bill Burr. I'll check out your next movie. You are a good director. I'll watch Old Dads 2 or anything. If you go, wherever you go next, I'll check out your next picture because, damn, dude. Again, I could tell from Horizon, I was like, oh, we are of like minds on something. You understand what makes a movie good. It's not about, you know, the length of the movie. It's about what happens progressively from scene to scene and how you get there within the filmmaking of it. And you clearly understand that. Thank you, Bill Burr, for a great recommendation on Horizon. And thank you for a really good time with Old Dads. And so, finally, the big event. What I really wanted to talk to you about today is the film Upgrade. This is directed by Leigh Whannell, who directed also Invisible Man. And his first picture that he directed was Insidious Chapter 3. But he was also a writer for Saw and starred in Saw as the guy who was not Cary Elwes, chained up to a pipe. Really, he was a great actor in that first movie, but I had no clue until years later, checking out the DVDs, that he was also the writer. And again, years later, I actually saw Invisible Man first. I still haven't seen Insidious Chapter 3. I saw Invisible Man first. I already have a movie review for that. And that was a great movie that was about domestic violence and how, even though it was a science fiction story, it is about how sometimes it can be hard to see domestic violence because oftentimes the person committing it is convincing the person they're hurting to hide it. And not only that, the person that is being hurt convinces themselves to hide it because of shame, guilt, all that stuff. And it can be so manipulative. And that's the underlying theme of this sort of sci-fi horror where a guy in an invisible suit is basically following around his ex-girlfriend and messing with her life and hurting and killing people around her. Invisible Man is an awesome flick. If you haven't seen, I highly recommend it. And ironically, while I would say Invisible Man is probably the superior picture, just in terms of Leigh Whannell's control, I think Upgrade is the superior picture in terms of pure creativity. Upgrade is a film about a quadriplegic who gets this little device implanted into his spine, and it's an advanced computer technology, an AI, that essentially helps control his body for him since he can no longer do it. And as soon as it's implanted in, he can move his arms and legs, but there's this awkwardness to it where it is like you're telling a machine to move your body. And so he kind of, it's like he's a non-player character a little bit, but he's still kind of human, you know? It's like, because it is him telling his body to do things, so there's a humanity to it, even though it's semi-robotic. And it's like a really well done movie because it's like, although it's a science fiction movie, it takes place in the future. You see future tech cars where you don't even need to see out the window anymore because the car is driving you. And you can watch a movie and the car will just take you wherever you're going. which is so trippy. But this movie starts off with our main actor, Logan Marshall Green, who was in Spider-Man Homecoming. Here's another case where here's an actor who I've only ever seen playing the shitty, bad attitude side character who you're not supposed to like, and something bad's supposed to happen to them. Basically, the cannon fodder character. You know, and I've seen him play it twice in 2 separate movies, and both times thought, you look kind of like Tom Hardy. But he's not Tom Hardy. And so when I saw him in this movie, and he's kind of rough around the edges as a character, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're doing it again. But, you know, there's this horrible incident where he's driving with his girlfriend, and the car loses control, and it's a horrible accident, and then these guys come up and kill her and shoot him in the neck, and that's what causes his situation. And what's beautiful about the movie is we don't get to the sci-fi tech part right away. We get this 10 minutes of movie to see him dealing with being a quadriplegic, dealing with the sadness of loss of losing his girlfriend and losing his limbs. And there's even this very jarring scene where he's clearly just so out of it and so depressed, but you see this sort of nurse technician explaining to him how this robot will build any food or drink for him that he needs. All he needs is to say what he wants and it'll do it. And his mom is there too. And talk about a directing moment. They're entirely in the background, out of focus, and we're just on him slowly getting closer. But you hear them and see them out of focus, talking and moving, and the nurse technician's like, just if you want a protein shake, just say protein shake, and it'll do it. And the mom goes, protein shake, and they're trying to get him to do it, and he won't say anything. And then the mom finally does it, protein shake, and it starts making the protein shake, and she's like, oh my gosh, and they're just giggling, and they're trying to be normal, they're trying to, give some sense of normality and cuteness, but this guy is clearly so far gone out of it. And I just thought that was one of those really beautiful directing moments where it's about the character and what they're going through, and then you see the mom later, like, cutting his hair because he's grown a massive beard and cutting it down to look nicer. And then he just starts crying, and it's one of those heartbreaking. The first thing I thought of is the first time I got broken up with a girl that I really liked, and I remember I cried too, and I cried into my mom's arms, and that's what was happening. And it hit me that I was like, oh God, it's just like that again. So that was nice, you know what I mean? It was just nice the movie's taking the time to see what the character's going through, so that when the offer comes, and what's really smart about the script is the movie starts off, he's a guy who works on old school cars, and essentially his profession may be dying out soon. And his whole attitude is he likes the old school, he likes analog, he does not like the digital technology. He's an old school kind of guy. And yeah, he's completely against, technology interfacing with people as intensely as it's becoming in society. And ironically, with his situation, it becomes offered to him, and he takes up that offer. And so, again, getting into great directing, when he gets control back of his body, there's this really cool camera work where the camera just like moves with him and follows with him, and sometimes it's literally locked off on him. And I just thought, this is the most creative use of the locked off camera. I've seen a lot in other movies and shows where the camera is literally on a rig locked off to the actor. And it's designed to give you that kind of subjective experience of their suffering or their feeling, whatever they're feeling in the moment. And there have been times where I liked it, but most of the time I don't like it. I think whatever lens they use looks really ugly on the actor. I think I don't really like this, you know what I mean? They use it in Glass when when Bruce Willis fights James McAvoy. They use it in a couple moments there, and it does add some tension, but at the same time, and they use a good lens, so it looks nice. But all in all, in general, I really don't like it. But this had a motivation for it. It's that he is literally sort of both controlling and being controlled by a device in his body. So he is feeling like a robot in a kind of bizarre way. So the fact that the camera takes this subjective attitude, this is film language, this is what I've been talking about. The camera takes this sort of subjective place where when he's moving around, the camera is moving with him, and the camera will pull back and circle around and do nice camera moves here and there. But in general, when he's in an emotional state, or specifically when we get into the action scenes, because this is also partly a revenge action movie where he's going after the people who killed his wife. When we get into the action scenes, and at first he's controlling his own body and he's fighting with these guys, and it's kind of normal camera work, normal film language. But then when the device starts speaking to him and says, "I can help you fight. Just give me authorization to control your body for this fight." And he says, "Okay, I authorize you." And then immediately, he's literally being strangled on the floor, and he goes, "I give you authorization." And then suddenly he kicks the guy off of him, and then he just pushes himself off the floor, almost like so robotically, but the camera like follows him, and it's such a cool, great moment, and the camera just kind of keeps doing that during the action scene, where it's just kind of moving with him, and it's so kinetic and it's so fresh, and it kind of feels a little bit like a video game, like you're in a video game, which is probably the experience they're trying to go for. Not literally a video game, but just that experience that you're being controlled and also controlling at the same time. And what's so crazy is that the machine, when it's in auto mode, is so effective. It's kind of a little bit like Jason Bourne, like, oh my god, I can do kung fu, you know what I mean? Oh, I didn't know that. Or I can do spy fu. But he's doing all these movements where it's his body doing it, but his head is still just him being a normal guy going like, oh my god, you just threw that guy into a closet door and he busted through it on. And just this first scene, like the way the camera moves, but also the way his body is moving, it's much more robotic and efficient when the robot is in full control. It's so much more like a robot. You can it reminds me like RoboCop, like he's like on pistons and on gears and rotating, you know what I mean? But it's like the super efficient, smooth version of that. Even Terminator had that roboticness, but this is now the smooth, perfect way to move your body to create whatever you need to happen. And then it's just, and again, it's just beautiful to see that out of all this choreography, on top of that, as the machine gets more violent in each fight, you're seeing him at first be like, oh shit, I'm surviving, and then he goes from, oh my god, what you just did to this guy is horrible, you know what I mean? And it's not really him doing it, even though his body is doing it. And it's just so, to see all of that expression going on, to see all that emotion going on, and you kind of just see what his character really is. Like, yeah, maybe he thought he wanted to kill this guy or these guys, but until it's actually happening and his body is doing it for him and he's not even really in control, he starts to realize, man, I don't think I am this. I think I just wanted them to serve their time. That would have been fine. And instead you RoboCopped them. And it's just like, It's such an intense experience to watch him go through everything. I thought that was just so creative. It's just so good. And I know it's kind of a semi-spoiler to be saying it, but I don't think it's a spoiler if you just watch it. The beautiful thing about this movie, I watched it twice before doing this review. I watched it one more time last night because I was just so affected by how well it was made. And, you know, you watch it and to me, it's like, you know, a true movie, a true story of any kind. If it's a good story and it's well told, which is the marker of what makes great storytelling or just good storytelling. If it's a good story and well told, even if you know it by heart, you can watch it a million times and it'll be fresh every time. Like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park, I can watch them over and over again, knowing what's going to happen, and I'm still shocked. I'm still surprised. I'm still amazed. Same with like The Matrix, or the first Spider-Man, or the second Spider-Man. There's movies that the experience of it is so visceral and so real every time that it's still a fresh experience, even though it's not a fresh experience. And so I loved watching this the second time. And I also, unlike the other two movies, I was like, I wanted to figure out more. So I watched some interviews with Leigh Whannell and Logan Marshall Green. And Leigh Whannell, what really woke me up about his perspective on this movie was I saw this video where he was actually talking about John Carpenter's The Thing. And he talks about how the scariest thing about that movie is that you don't know who's the thing at the end of the movie. And that the real horror of the movie is that you can have a bunch of people, and that it's a real parable about humanity. You can have a bunch of people getting along, and then some extra element gets thrown in, and then you see how quickly people turn against each other. That's what the real movie's really about. You know, he talked about the Terminator and RoboCop. I saw those influences for sure. And much of my feeling about Upgrade is that in many ways, while there was a RoboCop remake, I think Upgrade does the superior job of dealing with the same exact question of what happens when AI or the machine takes over a person, and what would it take to lead to that? And not only that, what are the consequences of giving yourself over to this technology? And it's I don't want to spoil it, so I'm going to get into spoilers in a minute, but the fact that the Upgrade deals with that, where slowly he lets the AI take over more and more throughout the movie, and you see the greater and greater consequences of it. And I would say this, to me, is the RoboCop of today's generation. But it's not a positive, happy RoboCop. It's kind of terrifying. Again, like I said, the very first action scene, whoa, cool, I'm really kicking this guy's ass with the help of this robot telling my body what to do. And, oh no, oh my God. But again, talk about references in that first action scene where you're like, just to see his head not doing the same thing as his body, is like, oh my God, oh my God. And there's a great moment where he's got the guy who was going to kill him up against the kitchen sink, and the body just starts smashing plates against his head. I'm like, that's Evil Dead. You did a reverse. Instead of Bruce Campbell smashing himself slapstick style, it's you smashing someone else. That's straight up Evil Dead 2 right there. That was just wonderful, like to have that fit in there, where it's violent, but it's also kind of humiliating and kind of hilarious. But also you see the robot, I guess, again, it's just showcasing its efficiency in being able to keep another person from hurting his host. But yeah, so spoiler free. I mean, as spoiler free as I could possibly get, because I just told you so much about this movie. Upgrade is an awesome flick. I mean, like I said, if you're a fan of Terminator and RoboCop and The Thing, this is those movies rolled into one for sure. And I don't talk about budgets, but I learned also in my watching interviews, this movie was made on a $5 million budget. Blumhouse made really low budget. part of the reason I don't talk about budget is because my focus, if I'm talking about filmmaking, is like, you got to be creative, because you might be making a $500 million movie, but you might have to solve the problem with a zero budget solution. Because the truth is, your creativity, your ingenuity, your understanding of storytelling and what's necessary to tell a story well, that is what gets a movie made. But that being said, to find out that this movie was extremely low budget, but that they did all the effects were practical as much as they could possibly do. So we got heads blowing off, we got people getting their head chopped like this, and it's real, it's practical, it's amazing to have this throwback practical effects science fiction horror. It's really a science fiction horror movie in disguise. And again, with all this creative camera work, as spoiler free as I could possibly be, because I said so much already, check out Upgrade. Now I'm going to get into some spoilers. If you haven't seen Upgrade yet, I'm just going to talk about my favorite spoilers for this movie, and it's really the ending. I'm just going to talk about the ending and why I'm calling it a horror movie. Like I said before in the spoiler free section, when he's in these action scenes and the AI is controlling his body, getting increasingly more violent, you're seeing him. I love this story. Talk about storytelling through performance. That is all that this movie is. When we're watching, I really feel like I saw Logan Marshall Green in his full range. I'm like, geez, this guy is actually a great actor. And watching it the second time around, that old vision, the old baggage of just seeing him play those sort of forgettable punks, the cannon fodder roles, completely faded away. I was just watching him and seeing him as an actor and appreciating what he was doing and servicing this story. But again, the action scenes, we really get so much emotion out of him, where at first he's happy to be surviving the fight scene. And then by the end of the action scene, he's so horrified by what the machine has done with his body to this other person, and horrified. And what I love is that we sometimes will just see his reaction before we see what the machine did. And basically by the end of this movie, Betty Gabriel, the beautiful Betty Gabriel who is in this film, I've only seen her in Get Out and Clickbait, but in Get Out, she was technically playing an old white lady, so it's like, I don't, other than no, I don't have much more to go on you. But in Clickbait, I remember just being wowed by she's dressed in normal fucking clothing, and she's beautiful. I was just like, whoa, I'm seeing you in a whole nother light. But it was a really cool show to see her, again, get her range and be fully expressed. I was like, oh wow, you're actually a great actress. Holy crap. I not that you didn't do a great job in Get Out, but it was just such a very specific role for a very specific reason, where it's just like I can't quite tell what's going on anyway. That's the whole goal of that scene in that movie and that character. You shouldn't be able to tell what's going on anyway. But to see her in Clickbait and again get that range was cool. But then here to see her play this detective was very, very cool. And but when it comes to this ending, she's such a good detective. She figures out everything that's going on. She realizes that Logan Marshall Green has been on the revenge path, but she doesn't understand that it's this robot that's been controlling his actions this whole time. And mega spoiler alert, to learn that the robot literally created the incident, paid the criminals to kill the wife and shoot him specifically to make him a quadriplegic, specifically to make him have to use the machine, was a crazy loop. It was like, this is the future Skynet. What's amazing is that if you look at Terminator and Terminator 2, that Skynet was less advanced than STEM, which is the machine here. That Skynet was almost playing computer chess with humanity. It's like, oh, okay, I kind of see where things are going to go, so I'm just going to kill my enemy before he kills me. This was completely opposite. It's like, this device is so advanced, it's like, I'm going to create a personal scenario that allows me to, and they set it up in the beginning of this movie, it has to grow with you. It has to slowly get your permission to use your body in order for it to be effective in what it does with your body. And that's all really set up for the fact that it's a AI, it's a learning computer. It has to learn how to use your body, and it has to learn to do the human things that it personally cannot do from someone who is not in any way techno involved. And what a great twist. But not only that, what a sad twist, because I was operating under the assumption that Betty Gabriel was going to save the day. Detective Get Out girl, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, she's gonna save the day, she's so cool. And then no, to see, and I want to shout out Harrison Gilbertson, who plays the scientist who implants STEM into Logan Marshall Green's body that makes him control his body. At first, I thought he was Dane DeHaan. I'm like, you're racist, Matt. You're racist. He's not Dane DeHaan. I've seen him in another movie too. I was like, oh, you're that guy. But again, on the first watch, I was like, man, this guy's acting so weird. He's just so weird. But then to learn that STEM was controlling him too, not his body, but basically manipulating all of his life events so that he's forced to do whatever STEM says. And it explains now, it's like, oh, that's why you're not acting totally humans, because you're literally being told to do what you're doing by a fucking robot. Now that makes sense. I'm like, because it was like, why are you acting so weird, you know? And speaking of acting weird, this was a nice little tidbit I got from the interviews from behind the scenes where the voice of STEM, Simon Maiden, was actually literally in Logan Marshall Green's ear throughout the filmmaking, and he was on set, but he would just be in a separate room where no one else could see him or hear him, but Logan Marshall Green could hear him in his ear. And I thought that was fascinating, because I couldn't help but think when I was watching the movie, yeah, you know, I can hear the robot, but no one else in the scene can, and you can see them looking at him, and it's so fucking weird for everybody. It's so hilarious. I just thought that's great. But to get back to the horror part of this movie, the fact that it ends with basically STEM winning and taking over Logan Marshall Green's body completely and killing Betty Gabriel and killing the scientist that made him was this is the future we have to be afraid of now, where now the technology is so smart it can do psychological warfare against us. It's beyond the chess match, you know what I mean? It's beyond the computer chess match. Now it's playing the psychological chess match. And you know, it really got me to see. To me, this is a true horror movie. It's the ending of The Thing, where you don't know, is Logan Marshall Green ever going to get free? Probably not. You know what I mean? But just the fact that everyone gets picked off in this movie, and including the main character, and then we have this setup for what's going to happen to him earlier, where he needs a hacker to deactivate the safety guards in STEM that was placed by the scientists specifically to prevent the ending from happening. And when he goes to see the hacker is hanging out with all these people using VR. And it's very much like Inception, where it's like, how long do they do this? She's like, days, weeks, and they don't sleep? No. And why would they do that? Because, you know, the VR world is nicer than the real world. And it was just such a sad thing, but also it was kind of a commentary on people playing video games and checking out a real life. A digital life is easier than a real life. And hey, here I am talking on a computer, you know? I'm talking to my cell phone. It's wild. But I just thought, wow, what a statement to make. And I'm just when that's exactly what the computer uses at the end to control him, you know, because before the safety guards are removed, he's like, "Can you read my mind?" And he looks like a little boy, like both curious and horrified, and the machine says no. But I like that even as an on-set experience, to know that people didn't know what was going on and they just thought he was acting nuts, and it's like, wow. But I think there should be a good, healthy amount of little fear in what you're doing, because Leigh Whannell describes that much of his crew was really uncertain whether what they were doing was going to work, because it was very creative and very unusual, and he wouldn't shoot for coverage. Coverage meaning you get all the different angles, wide shot, medium, close up, and you can control. He just had the camera do what he wanted it to do to subjectively tell the experience of the character, which is that's what Christopher Nolan does. If it works for Christopher Nolan, it's gonna work for Leigh Whannell, and so there was a healthy amount of fear about what he was doing, and even Leigh Whannell was like, we're not 100% sure, but he had a good idea about what he was going for, and he went for it, and it worked. And there should be a little healthy amount of fear when you're doing something that's never been done before, because if you're not afraid, that means you're doing something, how it works, and you're not really doing anything special. But that fear means you're doing something unexpected. You're doing something that you don't understand because it hasn't been done before, and that's awesome. That's a great thing to put the crew through, to then show them a movie that's awesome, and apparently it was a smaller release, and what I really regret is this movie was a pricer at Best Buy before Best Buy stopped selling movies, and I felt in my gut, get it. It's been recommended to you, get it. But I've also bought other movies people recommended to me and hated them, so it's just like, I don't have that much money, no. But now I wish I'd gotten the Pricer Blu-ray, or it might have been 4K. I wish I'd gotten the Pricer Blu-ray, because I wish I had the special features on hand. That's why I went and watched these interviews. It was like, I got to know something about this movie before I talk about it. It's just too good not to give it the extra time to really find out. Like I said, Scout's Guide, very conventional. I know the filmmaker's doing a good job. Old Dads, I had that one review of Horizon to have a sense of what Bill Burr was about when it comes to filmmaking, and that was all I needed. So Old Dads, again, delivered the goods. Other than the fact that it's technically a stand-up special, and the actors, the supporting cast, were doing things I'd never seen them do before, really play good human characters. Other than that, still technically a very conventional, solid picture. You know what I mean? And but not to put it down. I'm just saying, hey, it works. I understand why it works. Upgrade is special. Upgrade is a movie with these very deep cut references to sci-fi horror, but it's also a completely new thing. It's got its own voice. It's got its own story. It's got its own message. It's got its own fear. You know what I mean? And I think while The Terminator has standout things, I'll always celebrate Terminator 2 more, because I know when I watch The Terminator, it's a slasher picture with a science fiction overlay. But when I watch Terminator 2, there's a deliberate message and clear storytelling. And it's not about the budget being bigger. It's literally about the notions being bigger and the choices being bolder. You know what I mean? Slasher films have been done already. So you know how the language works. You know that the final girl is the final girl. It has this great underlay and overlay of science fiction and a good sort of messianic thing going on, but it's not really about that. It's basically a slasher flick from beginning to end, but with the sci-fi overlay. But when you look at Upgrade, it's multi-layered from the jump. It's the fact that it tells the human story up front, so that it can also tell the machine story as the story goes on. That's really inventive and then the filmmaking choices, the way the camera's locked off with him and how his body moves, and this is actually, I haven't directed in a while, but when I was making my last short, 007 I Only Need One, and I was thinking about making new stuff, I was thinking about there's got to be a new way to shoot action scenes that people haven't done before. Something that respects the I forget the 360 degree line. I forget what it's called. But oftentimes in action scenes, and I was a buddy with a stunt. I was a buddy with a stunt guy for a long time, so I know that when stunt guys build action scenes, they put the camera literally in every direction, whatever sells the stunt. They don't care about, orientation and cinematography and all that stuff. But when you see directors integrate cinematography with stunt choreography, you get a superior action scene. Like in Blade 2, that's what got me into Del Toro so bad. I was like, I'm watching a beautifully choreographed action scene, but I also know what's going on, what's happening, and the stunts blend in very well with what the actual actor is doing. Whereas so much in the 90s, growing up with 90s action movies and 80s, you just, here's the stunt shot where clearly a stunt guy with a bad wig is flying out and doing way too much, and that's not how the actor's acting when they do their side. You know what I mean? It's like, or you just have to see the actor do what the stuntman did if he was there to watch it. You know what I mean? There's just so much of that stuff was just, it looks bad, and it takes you out of the movie when you can tell that's the stunt shot. So to have this movie where I really couldn't tell where the stuntmen were, and apparently a lot of it was done by the actors, which is fascinating. But I thought and I forget the stunt coordinator's name, but apparently he's famous stunt coordinator, and they made this in Australia. Leigh Whannell's also Australian. But yeah, apparently the crew had worked on so many legendary projects that they were just so on point, which is awesome to hear. But just the fact that the cinematography was beautiful and the action blended so well, but it was all under this net of the storytelling, that the camera is part of that storytelling language. It's locked off because it's actually the robot that we're seeing the world through. And we don't know that till the end when STEM fully takes over Logan Marshall Green and he just fully goes robot. It's no longer, and you realize, and I really like this interview from Logan where he was talking about how he was designing the physical characteristics of his performance, which is another aspect of filmmaking. Is like, literally, how does your character move? And he said, well, okay, to make it clear what's going on with my character, when he's in the beginning, he's going to hunch more because he's a guy who works with his hands. He's hunched over all the time. So he's going to have this hunch when he's talking to people. And I didn't even notice that the first time. I mean, I knew that his physicality had changed, but I didn't notice what was going on. So when he said that, watching the movie the second time, I'm like, oh shit, he's hunched. He's always kind of hunched. And it reminded me of my grandmother, because she worked in an office for a long time. So she always had this kind of hunch, it's from being on the computer, from looking over, from doing things with your hands all the time. And so he had this hunch, and then when the robot controls him, he's sort of human, but he still kind of looks awkward and robotic, you know what I mean? But he's doing the movement of a man controlling a machine to control a man's body, to move like a man as much as humanly possible. And when it transitions, finally STEM taking over, and he just goes full robot, even though it's kind of, you've seen this kind of robotic behavior before, it's actually the saddest thing. It's actually the most horrific, saddest part. And I love when he does not want to shoot Betty Gabriel. And he knows the emotions are what change it. The emotions are what change it. So he's crying. He's literally crying, don't shoot her, don't shoot her. I don't want to shoot her. You know what I mean? And it almost works. And then the VR snaps in for him and he's taken away. But then you see him fully go robot, and it's just so crushing, because also this was so against everything he wanted as a person. It was much like Planet of the Apes. It's kind of got that too, where in Planet of the Apes it starts off with Charlton Heston saying humanity is a waste, they just destroy each other and nothing really matters, so who cares? And then he finds himself on the Planet of the Apes and he discovers his humanity, and he finds a human who can't talk, who's beautiful, and he kind of like I think I'm falling in love. I think I want humanity to persist. I think I want to defend the value of humanity to these apes. And then at the very end, spoilers, he sees the famous image of the Statue of Liberty cut in half on the beach, and he goes right back to the very thing he said in the beginning. He's like, damn it, you guys blew it up. You blew it up. Damn you all to hell. He goes right back to hating humanity as he did in the beginning. Whereas this is a similar circle where his Logan Marshall Green's character, his greatest concern was machines taking over and people being basically put out. And literally a line he has in the beginning of the movie when the scientist introduces him to STEM before the horrible accident and murder, he says, I see this, you see this, and you see innovation. I see this, and I see 10 guys going out on the street looking for work. And literally in this movie, I think he kills about 10 people, or almost 10 people, as STEM. So it literally, like his words become so true. And yeah, it's all of our fears played out, but it's also, these are legitimate fears. Even Leave the World Behind, which I liked most of it until the little speech at the end, has the auto-driving Teslas are become hacked and start attacking people and trying to kill them. And so these are legitimate fears to have over this technology, that there is something valuable about having analog control over things. We should not go full AI. We should not do this. This is the warning again, but it's a new level of warning. In the 1990s, and I love this, it's a meme that's out, but it's 100% true. That, again, going back to Terminator, Kyle Reese says, Sarah Connor asked Kyle Reese, how the hell can a robot do these things? And he says, well, we can't do them. You can't do them yet, not for another 40 years. And 40 years has passed since those words were spoken. And here we are, and now we are literally having bioorganics being machine made. And we are having machines being made to do what humans do. And people are being put out of work. And AI is literally going to replace people's jobs. Every single thing warned about years ago is coming to pass. And here's my question for all you very intelligent CEOs. When you're done replacing all your human workers with machines, who's going to buy your products? If no one can make money to buy the things you make, how exactly are you going to make money? Because you've given all the work to machines. I mean, eventually this snake will eat itself. Eventually you will just diminish yourself. So at what point do we start caring about humans first and stop doing, again, go to Jurassic Park. You were so excited to do what you could, you didn't stop to think if you should. And that's what this movie is about. Logan Marshall Green's character knows that he shouldn't do it. It's his philosophy not to do it. But he's given emotional, psychological manipulation to do it. And it's tragic, you know what I mean? And here we are. America is so divided over past woes, current woes. People are so apathetic and people are not acting on anything. And we are literally letting technology take over. That sooner or later, I'm not going to talk to a person anymore. You're just going to see my video and wonder, is he actually alive? Is he out there? Is anyone actually out there? I don't know. I'm just in my VR headset, not interacting with the world. And not getting a job. And, oh, the power is getting cut off. And, oh no, it's too late. And that's, to me, the tragedy that Upgrade is. It's a genuine horror movie in the vein of Terminator, RoboCop, and The Thing. It's a beautiful mishmash of all of those concepts with that great warning at the very end of, you just don't know. You just don't know if anything good is going to come beyond this moment. And it seems that we are just headed toward certain doom. And the end of The Thing, you don't know if Keith David is the Thing and he's going to eat Kurt Russell. You know what I mean? And likewise, did Kurt Russell get infected when he was fighting the thing 10 minutes prior. You know what I mean? You just don't know for sure what's going to happen. And I like to think, in my heart, I like to think both of them are human, and they've just come full circle to where it's just them again, but now they just can't possibly trust each other. That's what I think is the ending, because I just thought he did disappear, but there's probably a valid reason for it, because he was always a level-headed character, just like Kurt Russell. And so I just thought, maybe he was fighting another thing, or maybe there was another thing to fight. Who knows? But either way, it doesn't matter, because the movie ends with you just don't know for sure who's good or who isn't. And so with Upgrade, it's like you just don't know if Logan Marshall Green's ever going to be free again. And there's kind of a hope that he will. Just to know that the machine does have some vulnerabilities and weaknesses, it's hopeful that something could happen. But just the fact that, basically this man is taken over and his worst fears come true. And this is the warning for all society. But it's all packaged in this very creative, wonderful story. I just thought, wonderful. Mwah. Leigh Whannell, fantastic director. Go see Invisible Man, go see Upgrade, if you sat through the spoiler section. And I say honestly, if you did sit through the spoiler section, I don't think it matters. I think, truth be told, it's such a good movie. I think it stands on its own. Whether you know what's going to happen or not, I think when you watch it, you're going to have an experience. Ooh, excuse me, human burp. Okay, that's it. My ass is hurting. Thank you so much for watching. Aloha. And